Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are on a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad, and you're listening to Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Heavy on the Mr. Jim. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Feeling good. Happy to be on the air. I want to thank all the folks for tuning in, checking out our podcast and all Conrad's podcasts. But we appreciate you joining us every Thursday, and appreciate all the good feedback on our show. Appreciate the folks checking out ad-free shows as well, which is a great idea you had, because it hit, and people like it. They get a lot of extra content, new content, and I'm even the stuff that Tony and I do on our little ride-alongs, as it were, have been well received. So our work is being recognized. Can't tell you guys how much we appreciate your support, and tell a friend about our show and tune in. I saw something where we got a nice here a while back. We got recognized by a podcast magazine.
Yeah, absolutely. Podcast magazine shouted us out as being one of the podcasts to watch and one of the best podcasts around. So we appreciate everybody tuning in and recognizing us and supporting us in ways like that. And you made mention of adfreeshows.com. I think people are digging On the Road again. I keep getting great feedback. We've been dropping those episodes right after Dynamite on Wednesday over at Ad Free Shows, and the third episode last week was a big hit.
Yeah, it's fun. Tony and I have fun with those, and it's very. If you guys haven't listened to it or haven't checked it out, it's just two guys that have been friends for 30 years, making road trips and talking about whatever the hell comes in our mind. And we get off these little tangents, and we always end up laughing about something. So it's a real cathartic for me, and I think for Tony as well. Tony the Road Warrior, he likes to drive, so that really works well for me, because I don't like to drive. So that's how that situation is. So it's fun. It's a fun deal, and it's good that in this day and age with all this turmoil in our country, that two guys that have been buddies forever can get together and just talk about family and rebook the territory, as it were, and all those type things that we talk about in the wrestling business. So it's a fun. If you haven't checked it out, folks, you might. It's not a long watch. They're short, but they're. I don't know, how short are they, Conrad? 15 minutes.
10, 15, 20 minutes. The idea though is it's sort of wrestling's equivalent of Grumpy Old Men. It's great, man. I really enjoy the opportunity to ride around with you guys, and I've never been in the car with both of you, but I feel like I have now. And for years and years, we heard, well, business is done in the bar, but you hone your craft in the car. And so making towns and doing all that, that's kind of the cliche in wrestling. And here it's happening every week at adfreeshows.com with Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross. Check it out. And we're excited today because, well, I'm excited. We're talking about one of my favorite wrestlers as a kid, but then, you grow up and you learn some more about some folks. And of course, today is no different. It's the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, born in June 16th, 1959. That's the reason we're covering him. He just celebrated a birthday. He's about 50 miles outside of Indianapolis, and very early on decides he wants to get into bodybuilding and becomes an amateur bodybuilder. And fast forward, when he's on the West Coast, he meets a fella named Rick Bassman. And before you know it, he is headed down the path of becoming a professional wrestler. Rick Bassman is a name that has been synonymous with a lot of big stars over the years. What can you tell us about Rick, Jim?
Entrepreneur, a big time entrepreneur. He had a wrestling school out there, had a little promotion in Southern California, and a lot of stars are congregating in Southern California. They may not be as congregated right now as they once were in that respect, but nonetheless, Rick was an entrepreneur. He was a promoter, always looking for the next gig, a hustler, but a very forward-thinking guy. And he kept in contact with us at WWE back in my talent relations days, always with an idea, for a talent. I got this guy, I got that guy. So that's where I was introduced to John Cena, because Rick Bassman, in addition to all the guys like Sting and Ultimate Warrior that he was affiliated with, he also had, among others, John Cena. And that was my biggest get out of his camp, was going out there and scouting John Cena, meeting him, talking with him, getting to know him, and then signing him. I told the story before that I took a red eye back from LAX to New York City, and I went straight to the office. I probably looked a little disheveled because I was flown all night. And I told Vince that I think I just signed our main eventer for WrestleMania in about 5 years. I'd like to go back and do my research and see how long it actually was, but Vince thought I was sleep deprived. He said, "You need to go home and shower and come back to work," or something like that. So, in other words, he didn't celebrate my signing as fervently as I did until he met John, and then he was all in. He saw what I saw, a smart guy that loved the business, a real student of the game, not a bullshit student of the game where you just memorize somebody's Wikipedia page. He understood the business and he respected the business. So he came out of the Bassman camp. And I think that was, I don't know, was it UPW or something like that? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
so long
that's
ago.
right. Yeah.
And but Bassman was that guy. He was a promoter, entrepreneur, hustler, loved the business. I'm sure he still does. But I haven't talked to him in years. I think he's out of the pro wrestling side of things. But anyway, he was the guy that gave talents that lived in that area an opportunity to get noticed. So he did a great service for a lot of the wannabe pro wrestlers that lived in Southern California, because he was accessible, local, and he had the ear of WWE. I don't know how many times Bruce went out there to scout. At least he said he was scouting.
I love you for that. Well, the way he first gets Hellwig involved is through an outfit called Power Team USA. And this was quite the phenomenon back in the day. How would you explain Power Team USA, where these guys are, doing sort of strongman feats on a big stage and trying to give inspirational messages, but they're in red, white, and blue windsuits, right?
Yeah. It was pretty gimmicky, actually. Pretty gimmicky. Interesting concept. I don't know that there's some of those guys he had that I don't know if I'd want to get motivated by, but nonetheless, it was an interesting concept, an idea, and something that he could manage and pull off. And it was colorful. It was different. All those are good things in pro wrestling. Having a situation where you don't take your eyes off somebody is what he tried to create, and he did a nice job there. So Rick was an asset at a point in time there for WWE, because everybody wanted to come to WWE. He may have been sending stuff to WCW as well. Hell, I don't know. Eric could probably tell you that better than I. But we had a good rapport with him. He always had backstage passes and tickets to Southern California WWE events, and he was always his presence is always there. So, but it was a kind of a gimmicky thing. But the nice thing about it, out of it came Warrior and Sting out of that group, and he got them booked in Memphis, which is very famous for booking just about anybody that was different or new to give it a try. That's one thing about Lawler and Jarrett. They didn't have any hesitation about trying something new and a new talent, because Lawler could work with anybody. He proved that for about 50 years. So, he could work with anybody. So that was the situation there. They didn't last long in Memphis. And then we got them, changed their name, and then MidSouth. So, and we'll talk about that. But Bassman, interesting dude, and I always appreciated his efforts on our behalf and my behalf personally. So it's all good stuff.
Well, it's an interesting time because, just last week we were talking about when you guys were going to anoint Sting as sort of the top guy in WCW, but just a few months prior, the WWF had done that for the Ultimate Warrior. And it's fascinating to think that these guys started at the same time, at the same place as a freaking tag team. The first tag team name is the Freedom Fighters. Hellwig is known as Justice. Borden is known as Flash. And that all happens in Memphis for the Continental Wrestling Association. And as you said, they're baby faces at first, but quickly turn heel. Dutch Mantell is their manager. And Dutch Mantell is a name that I think is probably under the radar for a lot of fans on the main stage. But God dang, he was a great talent and a great mind for the business and the territory system, was he not?
Yeah, he still is too, Conrad. Dutch has got a good mind. Smart guy, knows the ways and means of the pro wrestling locker room and the territory and things. We also brought Dutch into Mid-South at one point in time. Him and that bullwhip of his, I think he called Shoe Baby, and he popped that bullwhip and all that good stuff. So he was a heel there too. One of the hairiest men in wrestling, next to George the Animal Steele and Hulk Hogan. Hogan kept his shade. He's in the same class of Hogan, Lawler, George Steele, and whoever else I mentioned. So, but Dutch is a good dude. He was a good dude. He's there still there in Tennessee, and has been around, man. Dutch booked Puerto Rico to pretty good success actually, and but he was a smart guy. Dutch was. He still is, as I mentioned, but good dude, a lifer, and a lot of respect for Dutch.
Well, as you said, it doesn't last too terribly long in Memphis. I mean, a lot of folks are going to get their start in Memphis. I mean, Hulk Hogan went through there and Steve Austin and so many others, but this is the territory days. So when you're not making a bunch of money in one place, well, you try to go somewhere else. And Dutch Mantell had a famous line about Memphis when he said Jerry Jarrett held a meeting with all the talent and said, okay, boys, we need to make sure that steroids are not a part of your regular routine. We're not saying we're going to do drug testing, but if you're on steroids, you need to get off. And supposedly Dutch Mantell raised his hand and said, steroids, hell, Jerry, we ain't even on food, which is just tremendous. It says a lot about the pay scale there in Tennessee. But as I said, they wind up in Mid-South Wrestling with Bill Watts, which I guess became the Universal Wrestling Federation in 86. And here Jim Hellwig is going to become Blade Runner Rock. Borden is going to become Blade Runner Sting, but he looks a lot different than he would as the Ultimate Warrior. He's got sort of a spiky haircut, 280 pounds. And you guys did like a music video to sort of introduce them. I guess this was sort of the Mid-South answer to the Road Warriors.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Road Warrior, the president of the Road Warriors, their image, how they were marketed, they were hot, they were topical. Hawk and Animal, two big jacked up guys. And we had a younger version of that. And so, yeah, that was no accident. And it's nothing they were trying to hide. They were our version of the Road Warriors, and they were quite the attractions the first time around, but it was easy to see who was the better prospect, in that duo. And it wasn't Warrior, it was Sting. So, yeah, it was an interesting time. I noticed in the very beginning, Hellwig was I don't know if introverted is the way to say it, if that's the quite the right term. I'm not sure. It is for now, but he didn't factor in to the rest of the roster. He meaning Warrior, always seemed to be out of place, Conrad, a little bit in that locker room. He wasn't from a team sport. In reality, he never played sports. He was not a locker room savvy guy. How you conduct yourself in a locker room with other talents, so that hurt him a little bit. And I think sometimes it just seemed to me like this was the plan B or plan C for him. Something not that he set out to be, but the route took him there. because that was his best alternative at that point in time. You know, the guy, he got his degree in chiropractor, whatever the word would be. He became a chiropractor. That wasn't satisfying enough. And of course, I don't know how the money is there, but he couldn't, you know, he needed spotlight. He needed a spotlight on him. And so it was an interesting thing. He didn't last long in Mid-South, UWF area. He didn't go far. He traveled to Dallas and got hooked up with Gary Hart, and they called him the Dingo Warrior. But he never seemed to me that he was happy. I never saw him on a genuinely happy day. I just don't think he was built for the locker room. Even though people say, "Well, wait a minute, JR, he headlined WrestleMania 6 with Hogan." He sure did, but that don't mean he was a perfect fit. He was never a perfect fit in pro wrestling. So we'll talk about his personality as we go through, and it's very consistent. He didn't change a lot. I always thought he was a downer. I didn't think he was a team player. It was all about him, and he was very outspoken about political issues that he had no business of bringing into the locker room. People knew that he was a little strange. So, but he went to Dallas and got reinvented, I guess, as a single, which is what he wanted to be all along, under the guidance of Gary Hart. And then, of course, WWE sees him and says, "Oh, look at that jacked up guy, and we got to have him.
Before we talk about world class, let's talk about Mid-South. What attracted Bill Watts to him? Is it just the size and knowing how over and how money the Road Warriors were, and thinking, well, goddamn, I can just create my own Road Warriors here?
Yeah, that's it. You hit the nail right on the head. He didn't have a relationship with Hellwig. We didn't know either guy. We knew that they were trained in Southern California. The link there was to get those dudes into Mid-South was the fact that Red Bastien, one of the greats of all time, Red Bastien, was a great friend of Bill's, and they worked together in the AWA and other territories. And Red was a great friend of the Cowboys. So Bill looked at Red as, well, he's trained by Red, so I'm going to give this a try. And we need new talent. We need some new attractions. And so that's kind of where that ended up. So Red Bastien, I think, was a catalyst because it just gave, it gave Cowboys some comfort that at least these guys have been taught fundamentals where they accepted the fundamentals and could practically use them. Another story till you see them, you don't know. But nonetheless, Red Bastien was a catalyst in getting both those dudes, Sting and Warrior, into our territory.
We got to talk about how it sort of came to an end. We know that, it's not like the territory was exactly booming in Memphis. When they move on, they're probably not pleased with their pay, and it feels like a bigger opportunity to go work for Watts. But why does Hellwig ultimately move away from Watts territory?
He didn't fit. He didn't fit. His heart wasn't in it. And you can tell that real quickly. How much do you learn? The thing about a territory, Conrad, is that it demands that you improve your game because of this reason. You're in the same clubs, the same towns, in other words, the same markets every week. You can't come with the same match. You got to be diversified. You got to add a little. You got to take away a little. You got to change things up because the same paying customer, saw you last week. So are you going to do the same routine? And he was a routine guy. He had set moves. And that's what he did. And where Sting, on the other hand, was so personable that the guys migrated to Sting, and the veterans would give Sting some help. They would give him advice and feedback and mentoring, but nobody really cared to help Hellwig because he's the kind of guy that you'd talk to and you could see in his face, he wasn't listening. He always felt he was smarter than everybody else. I'm only here because of the money. And when he finds somebody that is a bodybuilder and they're so vain and narcissistic that that's all they care about is their look, not their skill set, just their look. How do I look on this 8x10? How's my tan? How's my vascularity? All this other shit that, that was his MO. So a lot of the guys didn't want to give him the time of day. And so that's kind of that deal. So it just didn't work. I'm sure there were some things going forward. Maybe he didn't want to do it, put somebody over, or the road agents were saying, hey, this guy ain't getting any better. He's got a bad attitude, whatever. So Cowboy quickly saw who the keeper was in that group in his view. So even though that you can contradict that theory by saying, well, but what about WrestleMania 6? You can't live forever on WrestleMania 6.
Right.
And if you go back and watch that match, which a lot of people have, Hogan led the match. Hogan structured it to where they only did things that Warrior could do reasonably well, and that was a short move set. So Cowboy just felt like that he wasn't worth the time or the effort. He didn't have the attitude, very aloof. And Sting, on the other hand, very congenial, very locker room oriented. Everybody liked him. He was a very likable guy, just like he is today. So I think that was the deal. Cowboy was big on being loyal to the company and being dedicated. And it didn't seem like the loyalty thing was ever going to come about. And certainly the guy had his own agenda, and it wasn't a team-oriented agenda, even though pro wrestling is probably looked at by a lot of folks as a individual sport, individual entity, if you will. It just was a situation where this guy didn't seem to be all in. He never seemed to be all in our area at that point in time.
I know this sounds silly, but in this era, it's not like Watts exactly has a performance center. There is no power plant like we saw in WCW. How did guys get better in the good old days?
They work every day. That's one of my biggest concerns about our with AEW is the fact that I don't believe that a lot of the talents that we have get to work enough.
Right.
And some of them are making enough money where they don't want to work anymore. They're in the comfort zone, which is a danger area to me. But that was the deal. The territory, like I said earlier, you have to get better to perform in front of the same audience weekly. It wasn't like today's deal where, of course, now there's no live events because of the virus. But in those days, you put guys on the road, you booked them every day. So now they're working, 6 or 7 days a week, because in that era you didn't get paid unless you made money, unless you were booked.
Right.
And that's how you made your money. So if you're sitting home, no payday. It wasn't guaranteed contracts and comfort zones and guys on salary, and they were all incentivized that the better you get and the more over you can become, the more money that we have the chance of drawing. And we'll bake these big old nice pies, and you'll get a slice. The bigger the pie, the bigger your slice. And that was the deal. That's how you got better. I honestly believe, I'm not knocking the Performance Center because I helped create the developmental program there in WWE. I still believe in it. But there's nothing better than working in front of a paying customer with somebody that's better than you and doing it frequently. And that's what the territory system produced. They had even though it wasn't officially named like a performance center or training center, whatever, the territories were, in essence, a training center, because you worked all the time. You're expected to get better. And if you didn't get better, somebody's going to take your spot, and they'll be given a chance to contribute. So that was kind of the thing there with the territory thing. He should have gotten better. I can't remember who all we booked him with, he and Sting, but it was always guys that were better than them, veterans who could teach them things if you were willing to listen. More often than not, Warrior was not willing to listen.
Let's talk a little bit about some things that happened in Mid-South. Meltzer wrote at the time or somewhere that when Hellwig and Borden come in, they automatically have heat with a lot of guys because allegedly Watts had to let some folks go to make room. And one of those folks was Kelly Kandinsky. Did you ever hear that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kelly was a nice guy, son of former NWA champion Gene Kandinsky. Kelly was very fundamentally sound. Kelly's issue was he was never going to work on top like his dad. He didn't have the charisma that Gene had, his father. And so, but I don't know how big a deal that was. I mean, part of the guys that Kelly rode with.
Right.
Sometimes you upset the apple cart when you screw up somebody's riding partners.
Sure.
I experienced that when we had the brand split in WWE. Some long time established writing partners were no longer writing partners, and they didn't like it. We tried to acquiesce the best we could, but you couldn't please everybody. So the same thing here. Kelly got his notice. I think Bill got him booked. He might have went to Dallas or someplace. Bill just didn't forsake the guy. Bill had loyalty to Gene, and Gene was he were old friends back in the day. So I'm sure he got Kelly a gig, but Kelly was a very popular guy. Everybody liked Kelly. Kelly had been in locker rooms. Kelly had been an athlete. That's why I always said, and I still believe the philosophy. I got no issue with a bodybuilder, but they're sometimes, and maybe more often than not, they don't make the best pro wrestlers.
Right.
Especially if they haven't participated in any sports whatsoever. If they had never had the locker room experience, if they had never had to have the back of a teammate, and vice versa. So, but that was a situation there. But it certainly wasn't about the money, because I know Bill didn't. Those guys got a guarantee, but it was minimal, because again, they're like commission salespeople. It's like your salespeople at your mortgage company. They're getting paid for productivity.
Right.
Close a deal, make a payday. Close another deal, make another payday. Sell a ticket in a wrestling match, you make a payday. And so that was the situation there, is always incentivized. Whereas today's world, we find more wrestlers than not in their comfort zone. So they're making great money in their view, and so they're content. They don't want to rock the apple cart. They don't think they have to get better. I see guys every week that I wonder, when is this son of a gun going to turn the corner? There's a guy told me this one time when I was officiating college football about experience. It was this. He said, well, he's been calling games for 15 years. That's why I told a guy this. And he says, well, here's the deal. He may have had the same experience 15 times. In other words, he hadn't called any big games. He hadn't called in a higher level of competition. He's just repeating what he did last year. He's not getting better. He's not getting a better feel for the game and how to manage a football game with aggressive and oftentimes violent players on the field. How do you communicate? And how do you improve as official? So that was the thing. It all reverts back to that territory theory. And so we just didn't see Hell getting any better. Nobody liked him. And we tried. Why wouldn't you want to like somebody?
Right.
But he wouldn't let you like him. It's kind of how I saw it, as silly as that may sound.
Bill Watts winds up coming out of retirement to work with these guys. And because he's the boss, well, he's the big baby face, and Hellwig has to bump for him. And it's been said that Hellwig didn't understand why he had to bump for Watts, who was 47 at the time and not exactly in quote unquote wrestling shape, at least according to what Hellwig thought. Do you have any memories of that, of Watts wanting to get in there with these guys and try to do something?
Yeah, it was just part of an angle.
Sure.
Storyline. The catalyst of that was Eddie Gilbert, because Eddie Gilbert was the mouthpiece, and Eddie was a great strategist and an outstanding worker. So that was kind of Hellwig was giving himself more credit than he deserved. It wasn't that fact that Cowboy was going to work with Hellwig. Cowboy was going to work in tags or something like, obviously. And yes, the young heels were expected to sell for the veteran babyface. That was the protocol at that point in time. And more importantly, it's what the owner wanted. So, him not understanding what he's got to sell for a 47-year-old guy speaks volumes that he never got it. It wasn't just about Bill. Oh, you got to do it's about the business. The booker said to do this, and there's a reason for this. Here it is. But Hellwig never wanted to hear or accept the reasoning. If it didn't suit his needs, then instead of asking questions and investigating and trying to get the answers and all these things, he just sulked or mumbled. This was never a comfortable situation. The guy was not a great communicator. Listen to his goddamn promos. He had no clue what he's saying. And so he was like, "Oh, that was cool shit, man. That was cool shit." What did it mean? I don't know how did he talk to anybody in the seats? His look got people in the seats. His irreverence got people in the seats. His skill set did not.
We should mention that, the Warrior and Sting Borden and Hellwig here. They're a part of Eddie Gilbert's Hot Stuff International group, which was what you were referencing when you said Eddie was sort of the mouthpiece. And over the years, it's come out that around this time, Warrior and Sting aren't exactly getting along too great. So Warrior winds up leaving the promotion, but Sting sticks around. And as you said, Warrior finds himself in World Class Championship Wrestling, of course, ran by Fritz von Erich in Dallas. And this is where he would become the Dingo Warrior. And Jim has said that he took that name because a wrestler told him once he looked like a warrior. And he starts here as a heel. He's managed by Gary Hart, and he's teamed with a guy he'd have a lot of interaction with in a few years, Mr. Rick Rude. And eventually during a tag match, they have some problems. That leads Dingo Warrior to turning face. He would win the World Class Texas Heavyweight title from Bob Bradley, and holds on to it until it goes to the WWF. And then of course they vacate the title, but he has some success here in early 87 with World Class and really gets the big break in the WWF. I should mention though, that I think, and this has been written about for years, New Japan Pro Wrestling is impressed with his look, and they wanted to stick him in the Big Van Vader gimmick. They had the whole headset and this whole idea of what it would look like. But thankfully he takes the WWF nod instead. And Leon White winds up with the Big Van Vader gimmick. Can you imagine if Ultimate Warrior became Vader?
No, I can't. I'm sure they thought that was a great, his look got him down the road so many miles. He always came back to look. That's from promoters to say, well, I'm sure that Fritz thought, because Fritz had a massive ego, just like Cowboy. A lot of those old top guys that became owners of territories had significant egos. Not a bad thing, but they had them. I'm sure Fritz probably thought, well, I'm smarter than Watts. So I'm a Texan. He's an Okie. So I know I'm smarter than him, and I can manage this guy. I can make this work. And then they put their top manager with him to try to teach him things, in Gary Hart. Again, I just don't know how teachable. You got to have an open mind to learn. Just like today's the situation where Black Lives Matter. I mean, we got to change the way we think. And you got to want to change. And I don't think Warrior ever felt like the wrestling business deserved his extra thought and his extra efforts. Now, if he went, he's still happy to go to the gym, and he did. He looked great. He never not looked great, but then that's where it stopped. And but even Gary Hart, one of the great teachers, he got him as far along as probably anybody could have. But I think that was kind of the situation. For instance, I can say this guy. He looks too good. He's going to draw too much money. He's a blue chip guy. And he might have been a blue chip look. Ultimate Warrior was not a blue chip human being.
I'm sure we'll talk about that a little later. Let's talk about when he starts with the WWF. He comes in as Dingo Warrior. Bruce Pritchard has said that Vince didn't know what the hell a dingo was, and he felt like there's already a Road Warrior act out there. There's already a modern day warrior, Kerry Von Erich, out there. So during a pre-tape promo, Vince communicates that, hey, we're not going to call you the Dingo Warrior. We're just going to go with Warrior. So in the promo, allegedly, Ultimate Warrior is born, and he starts referring to himself as the Ultimate Warrior. It sticks, and he finds himself in a program with Hercules and gets a big match at WrestleMania 4. And he's off to the races after this, including winning the Intercontinental Championship from Honky Tonk Man. And he starts to have some really big time success compared to what most people probably expected when they saw him in Memphis, or they saw him in Dallas, or they saw him with Watts. You're on the other side of the aisle here. You're not a part of the company at the time. Are you surprised to see how well he's doing with Vince, and that Vince is going with him?
A little bit. Yeah. But the thing about it is that, when McMahon is on, and when he was on, he had a real good gift of marketing, packaging. And the key thing that you do there is that you evaluate your talent, and you make an evaluation of what that talent can do well. And you make sure your road agents and the talents that are working with a Warrior, in this example, don't go elsewhere. Don't get out of that guy's strengths or his wheelhouse. I use this example all the time. If you can't throw a good punch, just don't throw one. The matches aren't necessarily structured for punching anyway. It's not really the name of the game. I think it's wrestling. And so, but Vince had a really good knack for packaging, marketing, And then so then consequently, and I think a lot of fans can identify with this and agree. I hope that his vignettes, his entrance, the sizzle around him was more prominent than the steak that he delivered. But so and Vince protected him. Vince had that. This guy's got the look. People pop when they see him. He does this crazy entrance where he sprints to the ring. Nobody else is doing that. But then that's where it kind of ended. There was a lot of foreplay, but sometimes he couldn't finish.
We should mention that he doesn't have the smoothest ride backstage here in the WWF. It's been pretty well known that he and Rick Rude didn't always see eye to eye and had some problems. Did you ever talk to Rick about his problems with Warrior?
No, not specifically. But I can tell you this, Rick Rude was the wrong guy to cross.
Right.
Especially on Warrior's level. I don't know that Warrior ever had a fight in his life. I really don't. I have never heard of that. But he dodged a bullet by testing the patience of Rick Rude. He was a no-nonsense badass. And so that wasn't going to be tolerated. Again, the guys don't want to be around people that are aloof and that look down. Look, we're looked down on enough in pro wrestling. Our fans that are listening here today know that. You know, we don't have the greatest image, unfortunately, in some circles as we all would like. It's getting better every year. It's getting better. The pro wrestling bias is lessened every year, in my opinion. But he just didn't seem. He was just so impersonal, and his personality was abrasive. And again, he always acted like he was gifting us with his presence.
Right.
And that's just not the way you build camaraderie. It's not the way you build a support system. He had to understand that the fewer people he pisses off, the better his matches are going to be, because people are going to be willing to sell for him and work for him and things of that nature. But he was protected all the way. I think when he beat Honky Tonk Man, it was like a real quick match. You know, because Honky was 10 times a better worker than Ultimate Warrior. But, you know, Warrior had the look and the sizzle. So they protected him every turn in the road.
Let's also mention your old pal, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Warrior had a lot of interaction with him during his first run with the company. I think a lot of people will remember the weasel suit matches. Bobby Heenan, one of the most unsung heroes of professional wrestling. I mean, he was not just a great commentator, but an incredible manager. And before that, quite the wrestler. And he made Warrior look like $1 million and fans were loving it. The only trouble is Bobby hated it. Did you ever talk to Bobby about working with Warrior?
Yeah, he did hate it. He didn't like Warrior. Heenan, of course, was Mr. Congeniality. Everybody loved Bobby. And Bobby made sure that he was friendly to people. Bobby was proud to be in the wrestling business. Bobby was proud of his vocation. And he was as good in his role as anybody I've ever seen, talking about the Brain. But Bobby did it because he was a company guy. And he also could show all the boys that even though I don't like this prick, I'm going to make him look good because that's my job. That's what I'm asked to do. That's how I'm booked. So that was kind of the scenario there. But, you know, Bobby liked pretty much everybody. But I rode with Bobby plenty of times. And he out of the clear blue to say, well, at least we don't have a Warrior match to call tonight type deal, you know.
Right.
He didn't like him. Conrad, I'm telling you, and I'm not going to go overboard here speaking ill of the dead, because the guy left a widow and 2 little girls, and that's sad. It's goddamn sad. But the issue is, I've never talked to anybody in my career, and I've been around, you know, these guys from the beginning. I never heard anybody talk glowingly. Oh, he's a good guy. He just misunderstood. He's a good guy. He wasn't a good guy. And when you walk into a locker room aloof, like you got this, when you don't, and everybody knows you don't, you're just bullshitting them. Wrestlers are street smart, man. They can see through that stuff a mile away. So Bobby knew what he had there, but Bobby did his job. And those weasel matches and Bobby selling and taking those crazy ass bumps and taking an ass whipping to make Warrior look good was what Bobby did for a living. And he was going to show everybody that I can get a match out of this guy. And he did.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because we recently heard in the last few years that Owen Hart was Ultimate Warrior's best friend during this run. And then eventually when Kerry Von Erich comes in, he reconnects with Warrior and they become big buddies. Did you know anything about Owen or Kerry's relationship with Warrior?
Well, Kerry's relationship, of course, stemmed from the WCCW stuff, the Dallas stuff.
Right.
And they both were workout freaks. Unfortunately, Kerry understood the business much better than Warrior, growing up in it. And so he had a little edge there without a doubt. So I knew that was where that relationship started. And you go back to look at, our friend Owen liked everybody, Conrad. Him disliking the Warrior was not something new but Owen liked him. Owen liked everybody. Owen liked everybody. And Owen can also see when a wrestler was struggling. He wasn't being accepted in the locker room. I'm sure Owen's gesture of friendship to Ultimate Warrior was simply to get Warrior to come around and understand what it's like to be in a brotherhood in a pro wrestling locker room. That was Owen. Owen liked everybody, and he was willing to help anybody. And he saw that a Warrior had potential. He could maybe draw some money. If you draw money, everybody else makes some of that money as well. Again, it's the old pie thing. If Warrior could help us bake big pies, and I'll get a bit nicer slice, and so be it. But that was kind of the thing there. Owen liked everybody, and Owen was trying to be the great teammate and help this guy get on better footing and be better accepted by his peers.
Let's keep it moving here. We know what happens eventually after he becomes the Intercontinental Champion. He has a collision course with Hulk Hogan. He becomes a made man at WrestleMania 6 when he is not only the Intercontinental Champion, but now the World Champion, having defeated Hulk in the main event in the Sky Dome. This is a really, really big deal. And it's happening sort of across the aisle from you guys. I mean, you're trying to put Ric Flair and Sting in the same ring together. Sting gets hurt. There's a bit of a delay. It doesn't happen before WrestleMania 6. It happens after. But it is pretty remarkable that within a handful of months, two guys who started together as tag team partners are now sitting atop the wrestling world as world champions. And the similarities are there. Crazy hair, face paint, big energy. But I've always wondered, what if things were a little different? What if instead of WCW landing Sting, what if instead Warrior sticks around Watt's territory? He winds up joining Crockett. Could you have seen these guys switching places, and perhaps at WrestleMania 6, it's Hogan and Sting, and at Great American Bash, it's Flair and Warrior?
It gives me chills to think that. No. I thought the Warriors push was strictly aesthetic oriented. Again, the colorful attire, the face paint was creative. He had a lot of energy on his entrance anyway. But no, I have a hard time comparing, other than what you pointed out. They started together. They were big muscular guys and all that stuff. I have a hard time looking at, that's about where it ends, because Sting wanted to learn. Sting was willing to learn. He had patience. He had time for everybody. He was respectful, and Warrior was none of those things. So I'm glad that he went to WWE. Look, he got the biggest push of his life at WrestleMania 6. It didn't last very long. It really didn't. For that kind of push to that star shine brightly, and then it fizzled out. So no, I don't. I wouldn't want to think of that. Crockett got the better deal with Sting by far, and Vince and where it's more structured, more you're heavier produced. The NWA in that era, led by Flair, was more old school working. All these things. It was just more tradition, and McMahon was a little different. Had a little different promotion. The matches were different. There are a lot of gimmicks and this thing, and the other. I can't see that ever. I'm glad it didn't happen, but whoever got Sting got the better guy.
What do you think Vince could have done? Like, we know how this run is going to work out with the Ultimate Warrior and the WWF here in 1990. But if Sting would have been the guy beating Hogan in Toronto, do you think Sting would have become an even bigger superstar than he became?
Oh, hell yes, absolutely. Because WWE was looked at as the big dog in the yard, and Sting kept evolving. Conrad, he kept improving. His game got better. Look at some older Sting matches. You see great athleticism and individual things that he did really, really well. But over time, he learned to connect all the dots and build continuity in his matches. I never saw Warrior get any better after he went to WWE than he was in any other territory. Did he get better in WWF? No, I don't think so.
Right.
So Sting was a star. Sting was so goddamn loyal to WCW that he could have gone to WWF at any time if contractually, if he was not contractually obligated, and would have been a major star there. But he was a quality human being. That's kind of how that works more often than not. You see guys that are renegades that have long careers, but really, do they? Based on what they could have had, Sting was a perfect locker room guy. Nobody better. And then you got Warrior, who didn't, Warrior's the kind of guy that would come in and demand his own locker room.
Right.
That was always a tip off to me when a talent says, I got to have my own locker room. Why? Why can't you dress with the talent? You go to the NFL, Tom Brady don't have a separate locker room. I'm using as a basic illustration, but
sure,
it just didn't work, man. I can't stress this enough. Smoke and mirrors and great marketing. That's what made Ultimate Warrior a star.
Let's talk about, this run in 1990, of all the people that Hulk Hogan could have passed the torch to, and let's be clear, when he's breaking in, when you're working with him, in 85 and 86, Hulk Hogan is already the tippy top guy. Would you have ever imagined that this guy who you thought had a bad attitude and was a bodybuilder and didn't want to learn and all the negative stuff that you've sort of described, would you have ever imagined that this would be the guy that Vince McMahon would ask Hulk Hogan to pass the torch to?
No, I wouldn't, but I applauded the boldness of the booking. It was a babyface match. When's the last time you had a true babyface match at headlining WrestleMania?
Right.
Been a while. I had to go back and think if you're answering this question out there in podcast land. I was a little surprised, but Vince was in love with the look. He was in love with the look, and what was there not to love? Warrior had a phenomenal physique. He worked hard to establish it, even though it was obvious he had help, supplemental help, because you don't look like that naturally. You can't. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong. Of course, that's one fat guy describing a bodybuilder, so I don't have a lot of ground to stand on. But no, I was surprised. But again, the boldness of the booking and McMahon's ability to convince Hogan that this is what we should do was next to brilliant. And then Hogan, to his credit, pulled Warrior through. My God, Conrad, they had a 20-plus minute match.
Yeah, and it's probably the best match that he ever had. And we've heard that Pat Patterson was heavily involved in that. So for Pat Patterson to get such a great match out of it is really remarkable. But I guess, and I know we've been negative about Warrior so far, but my point about would you have ever guessed this is the guy, I didn't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying on some level, Warrior was a hell of an overachiever. Wouldn't you agree?
I guess he was. I don't know. I have a biased opinion of him, and that's sad for the show. I'll try to be more objective. But he might have been an overachiever. But to be an overachiever means you're trying to get better. You're trying to improve your game.
Well, my point is
he did the same thing every goddamn night.
I get that, but people have criticized Ric Flair for doing the same thing every night. And the reason he did is because once you sort of have signature spots, that's what people want to see. And I know over the years, you and I even talked about this a little bit last week about the supposed heat between Ole and Rick. And over the years, one of the criticisms that Ole throws around a lot is he did the same goddamn match every night. But if you sit down and ask Rick about that, he says his favorite wrestler as a kid was Ray Stevens. And if he went to see Ray Stevens and he didn't do the little
upside down,
then he was disappointed. And so he didn't want anybody to come to a Ric Flair match and not get to see all the Ric Flair shit. So he had those signature spots that, yes, he did all the time, but he wanted to make sure everybody, you don't want to go, his point is you don't want to, go to an Elvis concert and not hear the hits and just hear the new shit. No, I want to hear why I'm here. Like, play that Elvis shit that made me buy a ticket. So I get it. But my point about the Ultimate Warrior being a bit of an overachiever is, how many guys in this era were jacked to the gills and looked like $1 million? Billy Jack Haynes, Hercules, et cetera, et cetera. Vince didn't go with them. There was something about the
charisma, charisma, Conrad. He had charisma. He had the look. He had the feel. He created energy. His music, his presentation was sublime. And that was all Vince. It was a beautiful presentation. My point about the Warrior, one of the great things, one of the most important things you have to have as a pro wrestler is you have to understand how to implement crowd psychology into your match. When to do this, when to do that, when to back off, when to charge, when to go in reverse. And he never improved on that. And that's what was disappointing. Hey, look, he was never going to be Jack Briscoe or Dory Funk Jr.
Right.
He wasn't going to be any of the great Ricky Steamboats or any of those cats that could work and then understood thoroughly crowd psychology. And he never tried to get to that level. He never got better at crowd psychology. He just didn't. And so that's one of my big bitches about him is that, he was complacent. He felt he was so entitled. Why he was so entitled, I have no clue. I really don't know. His personality, whatever. But he always felt like he was above the wrestling business, and therefore, by being above the wrestling business, he didn't want to come back and enjoy the company or enjoy the locker room and understand crowd psychology. And so that's where my bitch with him is about. I don't care how many clotheslines he did or shaking the ropes or whatever. That didn't bother me. But not committing to learning the intricacies and the nuances of pro wrestling did bother me.
Well, we know that he's not going to be world champ for long. He holds the belt until Royal Rumble 1991, where he loses it to Sergeant Slaughter. And it feels like maybe a little bit of lack of confidence in the Warrior by Vince McMahon, because we're going back to what we know for WrestleMania 7. It's going to be Hulk Hogan on top with the world title. But at that WrestleMania 7 show, Warrior again has one of the matches that people still talk about to this day as being the best of his career. It's against Randy Savage in a retirement match. You've seen both. Which did you think was better, the WrestleMania 6 bout with Hulk Hogan or 7 with Savage?
Well, they're both very good. I would say the WrestleMania main event was probably his finest hour because he got anointed and got to sit on the throne for a while. But look, Randy Savage, as much as he was a unique personality, I described that. I never was overwhelmed working with Randy because he was so unpredictable. Maybe that's a good thing in some folks' eyes. But when you're broadcasting with somebody, you kind of got to know where they're going so that you can, as a point, the play-by-play guy, especially in a 3-man booth, is no more than a point guard. It's the play-by-play guy's job to keep the rudder in the water, distribute the ball, get everybody involved, and everybody be telling like stories. The story, all traveling the same road. So Randy was a little bit challenging in that regard. But Randy Savage was a phenomenal worker. And from the territory days and working with his dad, Angelo Popo, and all those things, Randy had been in the territory, he'd been in the promotion business. Randy Savage was a great in-ring talent. I'll never, ever discredit that. But it was just a matter of, if you have a bad match at WrestleMania with Randy Savage, man, you are the total shits. So Randy Savage got a great match out of Warrior, but I think the spotlight, there's more pressure on closing the WrestleMania, Conrad, than being in a semi-main on the card.
Right.
It's a little more pressure. So I would give the nod simply because of the position on the card and the booking to the Hogan match vis-a-vis the Savage match. But it was a fine hour for Randy because Randy did what a lot of people thought couldn't do. And don't think that Randy wasn't competitive with Hogan. Randy knew what happened at WrestleMania 6.
Right.
He was there. And he knew. So there's the competitive level between Savage and Hogan was always prevalent, always present. So he wanted to go out and have a better match with Warrior, the match that nobody could have a great match with. And he's only had one. That was with Hulk. And Randy would want to go out and trump what Hulk did. And so there's another underlying story there. But I like the WrestleMania match better, to answer your question a week ago.
Let's talk a little bit about SummerSlam 91. Along the way, Vince and Warrior are negotiating back and forth. And ultimately, it's been said over the years, and obviously Warrior disputed this, that Warrior was holding Vince up for more money, but as soon as the match leaves the ring, he is no longer a part of the company. This is the old game of telephone, telegram, telewrestler. What were you guys hearing about SummerSlam 91 and the Ultimate Warrior no longer being a part of the company?
Not much. Normal wrestling scuttlebutt. We had All We Could Say Grace over in Atlanta. But it wasn't shocking to those of us that have been around. He ran his course. He's that bright star shining brightly. It fizzled out. And for McMahon to put all that money and all that very intricate and very sensitive booking into Warrior, and then say, okay, it's not going to work. It tells you a lot, because Vince is not big on giving up on a talent that has potential to be a top main event star. And but he came to the end of his rope. The guy was more created more problems than he was worth. And Vince finally said, enough's enough.
I guess my point is, this is definitely the WCW that was jumping at the chance to sign former talents from the WWF. Was there, at least to your knowledge, in 91, any sort of conversation about what if we could get him?
No, none.
It is fascinating when you think about it, though, because one of the top stars, maybe the top star besides Sting is Ric Flair for the NWA. And so the idea that he's now unhappy and that belt shows up at SummerSlam 91, it does feel like you could have done essentially a trade. Now, of course, that wouldn't have been the original idea, but if Flair's going north, it would feel like somebody in Turner would say, well, damn, we got to get him down here, but that doesn't happen.
No, well, but we all knew he was a problem child. He limited skill set, Conrad. Limited skill set. Now I ain't gonna fall in love with this fucking 8x10 here. The interest is, why do you want to bring a poison into your locker room that has marginal wrestling skills, who always wants something different, something better? And so, well, that's the American way. We want everything, things better. He was irrational. And again, the cancer in the locker room. There's enough of those. You already have enough of them, and this based on the normal course of business, and it's still applicable today. You eliminate the goddamn cancers. You don't want that in your locker room. And sometimes you got to bite the bullet. Well, this guy could probably draw us a house or two. Maybe we could have brought Warrior down, got him, did some vignettes, get him some squash matches on TV, shoot an angle with a heel, and get a one-off at a pay-per-view. That might have been able. That probably was doable. But the journey from bringing him in to getting the match in the ring for your big show that you've been building was always an adventure, and was always with consternation and issues.
Well, we know that he eventually mends fences and comes back to the company, but in late 92, amid all of the steroid controversy, unfortunately Warrior fails and, they cut him loose. He winds up leaving the company on November 21st, 1992. Vince McMahon would claim that it was Warrior experimenting with growth hormone that led to his departure. I think the rumor and innuendo is he, in a hotel room, left a bunch of needles for someone to find, and they realized who it was, and one thing leads to another, and now they've got sort of no choice. But around this same time, it becomes a bit of a pissing contest, because in 1993, Warrior changes his name to Warrior. So Jim Hellwig is now the Warrior legally, and the company's trying to prevent him from using that in his personal marketing, saying that no, they own the Ultimate Warrior trademark. And he's saying, no, I've been the Dingo Warrior since I was in Texas doing the exact same act. And now it's my legal name. So they can't do anything about it, but this is really one of the first times we hear of a talent legally changing their name, What'd you think about Jim changing his name legally to Warrior?
Well, it was a way for him to take a shortcut and be able to market himself off all the hype and all the marketability that WWF had done for him. It was, in some ways, it was a shrewd business move. The motivation was financial, obviously,
Sure.
and he was always a defiant guy, and so he said, "I'll show the system. I'll fuck that. If I change my name, they can't keep me from using my name."
Right.
So that was the story there. He had a motive. He had an ulterior motive for doing it, and I don't know that motive was tremendously honorable.
Let's talk a little bit about the independent dates that he does. I mean, he's still, even though he's not actively a part of big time wrestling, whether it's WWF or WCW at the time, he makes an occasional and very sporadic independent shot in like 93, 94, 96. And he even starts a Warrior University, which is a wrestling school. Listen, I'm not trying to, as you would say off the air, gut and quarter the guy, but an Ultimate Warrior wrestling school, that feels a bit like an oxymoron, right?
Yeah, kinda.
I mean, Lance Storm. Okay. I'm with it. Like that guy, fundamentally sound. Don't remember seeing a bad Lance Storm match. Ultimate Warrior wrestling school. I mean, maybe he could teach on look and charisma and diet and exercise and all that stuff, but I don't know how much he could teach you about the mechanics of putting together a match, right?
Of course not. It was strictly financially driven. Using his name and his reputation, his tenure in WWE is enough to entice a lot of naive young talents that want to have similar success going to the Warrior Wrestling School. And that was, to me, that was the entire calling card. He couldn't, he couldn't teach anybody the fundamentals of wrestling. He didn't know the fundamentals of wrestling. He couldn't teach somebody crowd psychology because he didn't have crowd psychology. He had a name that he could market and entice, better said, these young cats to pay a tuition and come to his school. I don't even know how many guys went to a Warrior School. I've never talked to anybody that went to it. And I don't know how long it lasted. It didn't last long because until we brought it up here today, I'd forgotten all about that.
Let's also mention that this is the era where the WWF and WCW is down. I mean, professional wrestling is down in 93 and 94 and 95 and in early 96. The conversation starts brewing again. Hey, what about the Ultimate Warrior? And Bruce has said a lot on Something to Wrestle that Lisa Wolf used to say a lot. Vince just needs a hit. At this point, he's lost Hulk Hogan and he's trying to find the magic that he had a decade before with the original WrestleMania and being the king of pay-per-view. But by the mid 90s, all that's gone. And what we've got is Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and Kevin Nash. And these are talented guys, but for whatever reason, business is just not hitting the peak it was a decade prior. So if Hogan is locked up and doing things for WCW, maybe he looks to the other guy that was there when business was big, and that's the Ultimate Warrior. When do you remember that first becoming a topic of conversation within Titan Towers? Because now at this point, you're in that organization. When do you remember Vince first saying, what about Warrior?
Oh, mid 90s, Vince said he was having some conversation with Warrior, and then of course Vince he knows everybody's mindset on Warrior. It's not positive. So Vince is trying to, Vince would say, well, he's changed a lot. He's matured. He could help us. He's still got that great name identity. He still looks wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And everybody that was in the room was kind of looking at their shoes like, oh, shit.
Right.
Well, dealing with this guy is a massive pain in the ass. And the thing about it is it's not just, okay, your job, like my talent relations job, I dealt with a lot of talents that were pains in the ass. However, you could deal with it one-on-one as long as they didn't alienate the locker room and they weren't a negative influence in the locker room. And he was. And there was nothing we could do about that. The perception of this guy was negative. It was counterproductive But Vince, of course, being Vince McMahon, was, well, much like I used the Fritz von Erich analogy earlier. Where Fritz, so, well, I can make this guy a star. If Watts couldn't manage him, I know how to manage athletes, blah, blah, blah. And so Vince probably had the same mindset in theory. Well, the guy's matured. We've all gotten better at what we do. We'll bring him in and we'll take care of him, and he'll help us. And little we know, it's just going to be the start of another giant pain in the ass tenure.
Talk to me about your first meeting with him. I mean, is this a call that Vince makes to him and then sets up a deal with you? Or is this something where he says, Jim, just take his temperature, feel him out, see if we can get face to face?
He was much like when we negotiated with the NWO. I told Vince that we're going to get better results in signing Hogan, Hall, and Nash if Vince is in the initial conversation, so they can see they're dealing with the head of the company, which is what they needed, which they demanded, which they thought they deserved. Cool, no problem here. As long as we get them signed, that's what the boss wanted, and we did get them signed. After Vince's meeting, I took over that situation, and I always had good interactions with Kevin Nash, still a great friend of mine. Hogan, I didn't know well. It was a very business relationship at best. Scott, I'd known forever. I like Scott, still do. But Warrior was a guy that needed Vince's. He had to have Vince as his guy. He felt he deserved that. And none of us other peons were qualified enough to interact with him, his greatness. And so, but yeah, I remember going, I don't know if we're this part of our story or not, but I remember Vince, Linda, myself, and I think Cornette, actually.
Bruce Pritchard was there too.
Brucey went to Arizona, right?
Yep.
And I never heard so much foul language. And look, we all are guys sometimes and curse and F-bombs and stuff. But I try to, when I'm around somebody's wife.
Right. That's different. Different
ball game, man. It showed me this son of a bitch had no respect for anybody, including women. Linda McMahon, as nice a person as there is as I ever work with, ever. Sweetheart of a woman. I really like Linda. Southern Belle, we all used to kid about that, our backgrounds and how similar they were, what our mamas cooked and all these things. But him to do the F-bomb, the C word, and this and that and the other, and try to explain destrucity, his new word.
Right.
It's going to be the foundation of Warrior University. It's a theory. It's a feeling. It's a vibe. It's, horse shit. Go listen to some other motivational speaker you're stealing your shit off of. So it was, I lost all respect on that meeting. I don't know what Bruce has said about it, but it was, we were flabbergasted, and Vince was buying it. And then you got Bruce there, me, Cornette, three pretty good advisors, pretty good hands, and ignored. Vince, this ain't gonna work. All right, pal, we gotta make this work, pal. It'll work. I'll take care of it. No, you can't change the son of a bitch's mindset. You can't change his philosophy. He is what he is. As long as you recognize and identify what he is, you might be able to get something out of him. But it's not going to be anything near how you had him ready the first time at WrestleMania 6 with Hogan. It's not going to happen. But Vince, hard-headed, stubborn, the trait of a lot of promoters, thought he could. He thought he could resurrect this guy, and with some sort of some plan. But destrucity and being there in Arizona, and Warrior needed money real bad, but he didn't act like it, but he did. And so he was just, it was all about the money, man, all about the money. And I understand that. I understand you're pros. You got to make your money while you can. You got a short shelf life compared to other professions. But my God, you got to commit something. You got to put something back in to get something out. And he was never really overly overwhelmed and willing to put things back in that he was receiving. Excuse me.
Let's talk about destrucity for a minute. In my research, Jim, I learned that Warrior said the meaning of this is the truce between destiny and reality He's saying, stay true to what you are right now while striving for your ultimate destiny. With that understanding, you're a big believer in destrucity?
Shit, no. Come on. Come on, God. It means the difference between reality and fuck that. Get out of here. Sell that shit to somebody else, will you? We're not stupid. That was the thing about this guy. He thought he was smarter than everybody else. I guess because he was a fucking chiropractor. Hell, I don't know.
Let me ask, when you're in this meeting, I know we're talking about comic books. We should mention Warrior had a comic book, and I think he wanted Vince to commit to buying like 500,000 copies or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, as you've said before, that he wanted to know about the number of dates and the amount of money, but is creative discussed? Like, was he under the impression he was going to come back in 1996 and be headlining shows and be the world champion, et cetera, et cetera?
I don't think creative was ever discussed to any degree other than, you're going to be used very well type deal from Vince. His issue is, I've often said that talents leave a company for one of the two C's, cash or creative.
Sure.
He was concerned about the cash. Creative was not a big issue to him because he knew that Vince was not going to job him out.
No.
He wasn't going to be working the opening match. He wasn't a prelim guy. And he wasn't. With the money that we were going to pay him, you couldn't put him in a prelim spot. That'd been a bad investment in more than one front. But no, man, it was all about, he wanted to work less and make more. He wanted to have a big say in, what towns he worked. And it's, my God, we had nobody on the roster that had that mindset. Nobody that had that mindset that it was, micromanage his own deal. So nonetheless, that's where we were with him. I really believe Vince fell in love with the character back in WrestleMania 6 era. He never fell out of love with the guy, even though he was a pain in the ass and he was let go. I could look in the mirror and say, well, he let me go a couple of times too, but I hung around 26 years. But I goddamn sure put something in to get to take what I believe was mine to get out. So, but that destrucity thing, that whole meeting was about destrucity. He was so believed, what's that guy's name? The tall guy, the motivational speaker.
Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. He kind of felt like he was a jacked up Tony Robbins. And they both had those huge white teeth, much like Matt Hardy, those goddamn Bruce Dern teeth. Huge. The world's most dangerous teeth, Matt Hardy. And I like Matt a lot. But no Conrad. It was a selfish deal. It was all one-sided. This is what he had to have this, he had to have that. High maintenance. And here's the thing. You're bringing a guy back in the locker room who nobody likes anyway. Then you give him a nice deal. Telephone, telegraph, tell the wrestler, as you referred to earlier. And the boys kind of assumed what he was making. They assumed what he was getting, how he was getting treated. Even little things. He's coming back. He's already flying first class. Well, now it's not a big issue now because a lot of people aren't flying, but nonetheless. So all of a sudden he's getting the A1 treatment. He left. He's been fired. He's a dissident. He's a malcontent, and now we're going to really take good care of him. A lot of guys, it didn't set well, and I can understand why. I had to justify it. I had to try to justify the talent. Hey, look, Vince sees some money in this guy. If he gets over again, we'll all make money, and that's really the bottom line. We all make more money if this guy gets over. Whether we like him or we don't, irrelevant. He's on the team. He's got a jersey. It's our obligation to try to make this work. And I didn't get a lot of support on that theory.
Well, WrestleMania 12 is a real test of all that. He's going to return here, and he's going to squash Hunter Hearst Helmsley in 1 minute and 39 seconds. During the match, of course, Warrior completely no-sells the pedigree. Triple H, but this is before he's called Triple H. Hunter Hearst Helmsley, relatively new to the company. He was at WrestleMania 11 just in a backstage capacity, starts right after WrestleMania 11. So Hunter's first WrestleMania experience is losing to the Ultimate Warrior in 1.5 minutes. How does he get the short straw here, so to speak? Did he know that Warrior was going to just completely kill his finish? What can you tell us about this match?
Hunter probably had an idea the match was going to be the shits, and it was. But you book it so short and so explosive that you don't allow the extra time to expose the Warrior. The deal with Hunter was the fact that he already was a hell of a good worker, and we knew that he could take care of Warrior and be in the right place at the right time to not exploit the Warrior's weaknesses. That's a mark of a great talent, and Triple H is a great talent. So it wasn't a punishment. It wasn't some conspiracy theory. It wasn't to test him. How will he react to this or whatever? It was just the fact that we needed to beat a heel that could work and not expose the Warrior's weaknesses.
Right.
And Paul Levesque could do that very, very well and did. He bit the bullet. He sucked it up. And I think he gained a lot of respect from the locker room and certainly with the old man by doing his job as assigned at WrestleMania 12.
The next thing for the Warrior after this is he's working with Goldust for the Intercontinental Championship at In Your House 7. Of course, Warrior wins by countout, so he doesn't win the title. The next night on Raw, he defeats Isaac Yankem, the future Kane. A rematch happens with Goldust on May 27th in the King of the Ring qualifier tournament. It ends in double DQ, which eliminates both men and eventually gives Vader a bye into the semis. But then fast forward, and Warrior is working with your old pal, Jerry the King Lawler, at King of the Ring. But leading up to the match, they do a face-to-face confrontation / interview on Raw that Vince is conducting. And Jerry has a portrait of the Ultimate Warrior that he wants to gift to Warrior. But of course, he hits him over the head with the picture. Now, this, I guess, is decent enough creative, but it sort of sucks when Warrior comes out wearing a fucking baseball cap. No one has ever seen the Ultimate Warrior wear a baseball cap, and yet here he is wearing a cap, allegedly, because he didn't want to get cut by the glass. What do you remember about this silly shit of the Ultimate Warrior in a baseball hat?
Selfishness, lack of trust, lack of understanding. You're working for Jerry Lawler, for God's sakes. You think Lawler's going to hurt you? No, he isn't. You think that you're the first guy to get hit over the head with a frame picture? No, you're not. But that he influenced his angle because it was convenient for him, and the fact that his balls are small, that fit in a thimble, and he decided to basically hijack the angle. Because again, Lawler was no spring chicken at that time, and of course he's already proven the fact that, hey, if I got to put the owner of the territories a whopping 47 over, and I didn't like that then, I don't like it now. So it was a chicken shit move, and nobody knew he was going to do it. I didn't know he was going to do it. I thought, well, maybe that's what he and Vince worked out. I have no idea, but that's not the way that it was. He went into business for himself, and it shit all over the angle.
Yeah, it does. It starts to, the wheels start to run off a little bit. Warrior beats Owen Hart by DQ on the July 8th Raw. And then Warrior scheduled a team with Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson to face Owen Hart.
Conrad, let me interrupt here a second.
Okay.
Do you notice what we've talked about here in the last few things we said? He has a count out with Goldust.
Yep.
He has he finally gets a win over Isaac Yankem. He has the thing with Lawler. He has one pinfall win. Now, people can say, well, that screwed him. The reason he wasn't given a bigger push is that the lack of confidence.
Right.
He still was a volatile, combustible talent that you could not really fully trust ever. And so that's why all those finishes were kind of left-handed in that regard. So Owen Hart, DQ on Raw. I love Owen was about 800 times better worker than Warrior, obviously. But, to protect Owen somewhat, they did the DQ. If the confidence had been fully in place with Warrior, then he would have won the match. He'd have won the match by pinfall. But that's not how it worked out because a lack of trust.
Let's talk about what was supposed to happen at In Your House 9. It's supposed to be Shawn, Ahmed Johnson, and Warrior on one side, Owen Hart, Davey Boy, and Vader on the other. But instead, the WWF winds up firing Warrior because he missed several house shows. And he would say he's taking time off to grieve the death of his father. Vince McMahon claimed that Warrior had not seen his father in 10 years and did not care much for him. This all comes from their previous conversations, I'm sure. But Warrior is going to dispute Vince's claim, saying the real reason why he no-showed those events was a breach of contract by Vince McMahon, in which the WWF sold Warrior's merchandise without giving him a proper percentage. And Meltzer would report officially, Jim Hellwig was officially suspended by the WWF on July 8th due to missing shows the prior weekend in Indianapolis, Detroit, and Pittsburgh. The suspension, which was announced later that evening at the Raw show, was effective immediately. Psycho Sid will take all of Hellwig's announced bookings starting on the 11th in Albany and continuing through the 21st, which is the international pay-per-view in Vancouver. Sid was flown to Stamford on the 8th, while Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, and Jim Cornette, who worked Providence the previous night, stayed in town to do a series of vignettes that would run throughout Raw, hinting of a secret third partner for the main event against Owen, Davey Boy, and Vader. They finally announced the partner and have Sid do an interview at the end of the show, teasing that it would be one of several others. WWF figurehead president Gorilla Monsoon announced the suspension to fans, saying that no matter how popular Ultimate Warrior was, no wrestler was above missing his scheduled appearances and letting down the fans. And Monsoon then stated that Warrior would be welcome back, provided he posts an appearance bond, which in fact is basically the truth. There was a lot of negativity among the wrestlers regarding bringing Hellwig back unpunished for missing the shows. Vince McMahon told Hellwig that he would be brought back provided he post a large bond, which he would forfeit to the WWF if he in fact no-showed another card. And the exact amount Hellwig would be required to post is still to be negotiated, but it's been said to be in excess of $100,000. Jim is said to have neither agreed to the price nor indicated that he won't meet the price in order to return, but the belief is that he will return. This appearance bond thing, this is something I've never heard of ever before in wrestling. Is this new to you too?
The only thing is ever comparable to it is the bond that the NWA champions used to have to put up.
Right.
25 grand. And that's just to keep everybody on the up and up and honest. It's extraordinary. It's an extraordinary circumstance. How do you bill somebody? How are you willing to positively book someone that you can't trust?
Right.
And to the degree that they got to put up a six-figure plus security bond because, hey, look, we don't trust you. You no-showed major clubs for us. The fans are expecting to see you. You crapped on them. So who's to say that you won't do it again? So it was unprecedented in that respect. I'd never heard of it before or since in WWF or WWE now. But it's just another illustration that Vince finally knew. He knew he couldn't trust the guy. So here's what we're going to do to ensure the fact that he makes his bookings. Look, I had to call the guy, and here's what we're going to. Why am I booked there? Who am I booked with? What's the finish? Well, Jim, you're going to go over. Okay. But will I go on early or late? I might be able to catch a flight out. Whatever. Jesus Christ Almighty. So what you're saying is that you want to hang around the boys as little as you have to.
Right.
And I don't know. I'm old school in that regard. Conrad, I just shoot, man. These guys are helping you make a living. They're giving you their body.
Right.
And when you're willing to give the Ultimate Warrior your body, you are a team player and you got balls.
One of the big things that I guess is the crux of Warrior's complaint. This comes out in the Observer. Reportedly, he was in Indianapolis on June 28th and had a telephone blow up with McMahon regarding something he saw at a licensing show a few days earlier. WWF sources claim that at no point did Hellwig complain about his WrestleMania payoff in the argument, but instead he blew up because he saw a slogan of "Always Believe" being used as a WWF marketing slogan. He felt that was his personal slogan that he had used for years and that the WWF hadn't paid him for the use of the slogan, and felt the items with that slogan should have been his items and he would have been informed of them and receive a cut of them as well. Many in the company, particularly in the marketing department, were upset because Hellwig apparently blew up at people in that department and also because of the way he handled his no-shows. He claimed on a July 1st interview with Bob Ryder on Prodigy that he was having no problems with the WWF that caused him to miss the weekend shows, and that he couldn't understand why the announcements were made about him in the buildings, saying he missed the shows because of the death of his father. Where'd you land on this? The situation with Always Believe, and then him no showing, and he's claiming it's not because of that, it's because of the passing of my father, and Vince not buying it.
Always Believe was another attempt to legally extort more money. That's all. That's all it was. He didn't own that phrase. It wasn't like it was two unique words. Hey, if we'd have done Always Believe in Destrucity, now you got an argument. That would have been stupid. But yeah, it's just another shot at getting more money. And again, people are going to say, well, JR, all I want to do is make money. I agreed. And so does everybody else in the roster. Everybody else wants the same thing. But some of them are decent human beings, and they understand that there's a process. They understand that there's more than just you at play. And he never got that.
The issue with Vince is, I guess, through their relationship over the years, Warrior had told Vince that he hadn't talked to his father since he was 3 years old. And I don't know, Vince just, I guess, feels like this is more of the same. And we should mention that him doing an interview with Prodigy, while that doesn't seem like a big deal, it's actually not allowed by the WWF policy, because they have a contract with America Online. And at the time, Prodigy is a chief competitor of theirs. So once again, he's sort of gotten out of the WWF lane. This is pretty remarkable, the way the company handles this, with the announcements in the building, and then even going so far as to have Gorilla Monsoon address it on Raw. Do you think in hindsight that was handled the right way, or were emotions running too high at the time?
No, it's handled like you would anybody else. When you have a star that's a main event level star that's been advertised, you said little Conrad loved Ultimate Warrior.
Sure.
Okay. So there were a lot of other little Conrads that were there to do the same thing you were there. You would have done if you were that age in that time.
Sure.
And he no-showed your ass. You want to see the Warrior? Well, he ain't gonna be here. And that's how that was. He just, it was just, I don't know. It just, that's what we always did. You let people know when somebody was not going to be there, and you tried to put a adequate replacement in their spot and take away the little bit of the sting, no pun intended, for him no showing. I read in preparation for this show today, a Warrior's dad deserted the family when Warrior was 12 years old. And so here he is, 30 years later or more, whatever, 20, 30 years later, and now he's grieving the death of his father. It sounds cold and callous for me to say that, folks. I apologize if it offends anybody, but he had no relationship with his father. He was a biological father who deserted the family when Warrior was 12 years old. So the grieving thing, albeit on the surface, okay, I get it. It was a work, in my view, and everybody else's view that I talked to. It was just a way to draw attention to himself. He didn't feel like going. Again, that goes back to commitment. He didn't make his booking, and it was announced the way we always announce it, and to let people know, hey, look, we know you paid money to see the Ultimate Warrior type thing. He's not here. And so, you got to give people an excuse. You can't say, well, the guy's a dick, folks. He really didn't want to come here today. He didn't want to get in Indianapolis. And he ain't, by the way, he ain't going to Detroit or Pittsburgh either. I know the big shows. He ain't going to be there either. Because he's grieving, wink, wink. And he was a dick. He was a Richard. He was one of the first Richards in the business, in my view. In other words, he was a dick.
My goodness. Well, listen, we know that this is the end of the WWF run here. The dick is gone, as you would say. And I guess he's sort of silent through 97. There's some ongoing litigation, but nothing really ever comes of it, of any substance. And then in 1998, we start hearing that he's working out a deal with WCW. And I think a lot of Hulk Hogan haters would probably say, oh, I saw this coming, because they think that Hulk wants to get his win back from WrestleMania 6. When did you guys find out that Hellwig was negotiating with WCW and does this sort of, I don't know, is this a burr in Vince's saddle? Like, damn it, that's my guy. You can't have my creation. Or is he almost like, oh, thank God he's going over there. This will not be good.
I told Vince during that era, we just got a big break because he'll shit on them just like he shit on us. The leopard does not change his spots. So let them have the problem. And then Vince understood that. You got a lot of dressing room lawyers, a lot of guys, a lot of wrestlers with influence there. I'm sure, Eric's talked about that on his show.
Sure.
That drops every Monday, 83 weeks.
Thank you.
And so let them have the problem. Let them deal with this bullshit because he's not going to be there long.
Right.
So let them have the pain and the hassle and all that. Let them try to recreate what once was because they can't create how to protect Warrior and they can't create how to market Warrior better than Vince did during his WrestleMania 6 thing with Hogan. They can't do it. And he's already burned bridges. People understand, he's unreliable. He's limited in his skills. So, yeah, I don't think Vince had any animosity toward it whatsoever. First of all, the guy's got to go make a living somehow, some way.
Right.
But if you're going to have a malcontent, well, let's make sure he's in the other guy's locker room, not ours.
We should also mention that when he shows up on Nitro, it does a tremendous rating, and it's a long promo. And I mean a very long promo. And I think a lot of folks realized during the course of that segment, oh, this isn't going to be what we thought it would be. He winds up only participating in 3 matches. The first is War Games at Fall Brawl. He's a member of Team WCW, competing against 8 other wrestlers for a shot at Goldberg's world title at Halloween Havoc. DDP would win the match by pinning Stevie Ray. On the November 12th Nitro, he and Sting reform their old tag team and they beat Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart by DQ. And then they finally have the rematch from WrestleMania 6 at Halloween Havoc 1998. And well, there's no Pat Patterson, so this does not go well. And famously, during the match, Hulk is trying to throw a fireball at Ultimate Warrior with some flash paper, but he can't get it to ignite. And it's just about one of the worst matches in history. Did you see this Halloween Havoc match with Warrior and Hogan?
Shit, no.
I gotta make.
I was reorganizing my sock drawer that night. No shit. Well, I want to watch that train wreck.
Well, it comes to a close soon after for the Ultimate Warrior here. And he winds up popping up again in the conversation in 2005 because the WWE releases a DVD focusing on the Warrior, but it's not a puff piece. It's called The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. And the DVD features highlights of some of his feuds and matches along with commentary from former WWE stars and current stars, almost all of which are insulting. Warrior left the company in 96. This DVD comes out 9 years later. Did Vince just have a big axe to grind, or did he just think, hey, I own the footage, might as well do something with it? What's the thinking here?
Well, times are changing, whereas if a talent in the older days, previous generation, had issues and he left, then you write him out of your memory, he's gone. And Vince was that way up for a long time. But as the things changed and the world opened up a little bit more, the demand for behind the scenes content, the documentaries, if you will, increased. I think that's simply what it was. We thought that DVD would sell. It was a compelling story of this guy that a lot of folks, the little Conrads of the world, would never have known. So, I think it was just simply a matter of monetizing the tape library, creating new money, and letting guys express themselves. But the content was compelling enough in that era that the documentary style tell-all, which now is look at what the great stuff that WWE did with Undertaker, his inside look, having Taker talk, and that's the same. It's the same concept, except there was no hatchet job because Taker's Taker, and he was as far away from Warrior as one could get as far as dedication and respect. So I think it's simply a matter of profitability, Conrad, and creating some new money.
Let's talk about the fact that Warrior was originally asked to be a part of the DVD, but he refuses to work with the company. Of course, there's been animosity for a long time. And then, of course, when it comes out, it's definitely a hit piece. It leads to the fact that in January of '06, Warrior files a lawsuit against the company. It goes down in Arizona. And on 2009, it's finally dismissed. So it takes, I don't know, more than 3.5 years for this to sort of go away. And over the course of time, you know, the WWE Hall of Fame has become a pretty big deal. And there's often been talk and discussion about, hey, we got to put the Ultimate Warrior in. But as long as they're sort of at odds, that doesn't seem very likely. And then all of a sudden in 2014, it happens. And a lot of people have credited Triple H with being the one who made it happen. And I think he deserves the credit for repairing the Bruno relationship with the company as well. Warrior's return is mostly brokered, I believe, by the video game 2K, who wanted to make him a playable character in their video game. And Triple H, I guess, takes care of pretty much everything else on the WWE's end. I know you weren't involved in the day to day at that point, but were you surprised to see the company mend fences with Warrior and involve him in the Hall of Fame?
Were the fences really mended, Conrad, or was it just another way to get more spotlight on the Hall of Fame and create a bigger attraction? The fences are never mended. The fences are never going to be mended. But to again, I use this term, and I'm not degrading you, but all those little Conrads, all those talk about all the little stingers out there, all those things. Look, it was a nostalgic thing. You know, to see him in the Hall of Fame was going to be a feel-good moment for some. He was a marquee name, no doubt about that. And that all stimulated from his original push. There's that word again, kids, the old push. And so he had great name identity. And that was the deal there. So was I totally surprised? No. If I had been, they said, he's going to have one more match, then I would have been shocked. But the fact that he was going to the Hall of Fame, I thought was somewhat benign and harmless. Even he can't screw this up.
He makes it in the Hall of Fame. It's a big deal. It's pretty cool that fans get to play him as a video game character as well. I got to admit, the little Conrad in me was very excited when I saw the commercial for the video game. And it's interesting that Triple H is the guy who, you know, we saw on TV, especially in this era, a lot as a member of the Authority or the leader of the Authority. He would say, you know, what's best for business. And Triple H is definitely doing what's best for business, because for years prior to this, he'd always been very outspoken about the Warrior and not always the biggest fan. But it happens. April 5th, 2014, Warrior goes into the Hall of Fame and he walks onto the stage with his two daughters. What'd you think of his speech that he gave at the Hall of Fame?
I love the fact that his daughters were with him. I thought that was a proud moment for the little girls. Something they'll never forget. So there's a video of it, obviously, that they can watch and remember their dad. I think that was very sweet. Thought it was a good deal. Maybe the most impressive thing that I saw Warrior do in his entire career was publicly show his love for his children.
Yeah.
I was impressed with that. I was impressed as hell. So I give the devil his due in that respect. But he was just a great attraction for that Hall of Fame. You know, we can say this about almost any Hall of Fame speech, including mine. Might have been a little long, but it was very emotional. And the thing that I remember, as I said, about the two little girls, the love a father shows their children on this very special moment, somewhat of a closure maybe, and maybe the healing can start now. Maybe the guy will see the light and change and be more, open-minded and not, not so politically abrasive at times of things he said about different groups of people. But here's what I remember, and this is going to sound freaking crazy. He was sweating like he was going to the electric chair.
Yeah. And
I said, man, I told Jan, I said, something's not quite right here.
Right.
So, but I was impressed by the presentation overall, and the little girls being there with their dad was a great moment for me as a father.
It was a special moment, and I'm glad he got to go in. I was actually at that Hall of Fame. One of my best wrestling buddies, the Ultimate Warrior, is the reason he's a wrestling fan. So it was a big deal for all the little Clints and all the little Conrads out there. And the next day he appears at WrestleMania 30 with all the other Hall of Fame inductees. And I think this is the day when, he bumps into Hulk Hogan, and they've both been very outspoken against each other, especially Warrior. I mean, he would write rants on his website and cut all kinds of crazy videos, just absolutely destroying Hulk Hogan. And, Hulk's riding around back in a golf cart, which a lot of folks do in those big domes. And Hulk sees him, asks the driver to stop. They go over and talk. And unbelievably, the WWE cameras catch this on video. And Hulk said after the fact, he didn't realize he was being recorded, and ta-da, it made it. And there's also a famous picture from this weekend of, Vince McMahon and Ultimate Warrior hugging. And it was just, it was cool to see, especially now that we know the end of the story and how sad it's going to be, that all the folks that he had sort of rallied and railed against, and they had done it to him. It feels like this weekend we're sort of letting bygones be bygones. And that's a cool story.
Very cathartic for all involved that were closest to Jim Hellwig. There weren't many, but Vince and Hogan, certainly the most prominent of that group. I don't know Hulk well enough to know what it meant to him. I'm assuming that it meant, some degree of closure, but I do know Vince McMahon as well as anybody. And I know that Vince is very happy that they finally seem to be at a happy place, that all this turmoil and controversy and bad communication and mistrust and all these things were now going to be a thing of the past and only a memory. And I think Vince felt very relieved about that, man takes a bad rap on a lot of things. He has no feeling. He has no soul, which is total bullshit. He's a human being. Of course he's got feelings, and of course he's got soul. So I think it was a very important to Vince, and I was happy to see that. Vince seemed to be relieved that we seem to be we have arrived at our destination where healing can begin. And unfortunately, that was very short-lived.
The next night on Raw, Warrior comes to the ring and speaks and cuts a promo. It's 18 years after his most recent WWF television appearance. While he's talking, he says, every man's heart one day beats its final beat. His lungs breathe its final breath. And if that man did in his life makes the blood pulse through the bodies of others, if it makes them believe deeper in something larger than life, then his essence, his spirit will be immortalized by the storytellers, by the loyalty, by the memory of those who honor him, and making the running man did live forever. And the next day, April 8th, 5:50, he's walking to his car outside of a hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona. He clutches his chest and collapses. He's rushed to the hospital, and he is pronounced dead at the age of 54. It's revealed after the fact, of course, that he passed away from a heart attack. This is, I don't know, man, such a story, and so incredibly sad that he carried around all of this, hate in his life for so long, and then finally has a chance to sort of purge it all. And as you said, it was very cathartic, and wrestling fans are happy to have him in the Hall of Fame and on their TV program. And the next day he's gone. I don't know. It's just, it's like a movie.
It was shocking, Conrad.
Yeah.
And my best image, my best thoughts of the Ultimate Warrior, AKA Jim Hellwig, will always be the man going into the Hall of Fame with little girls in hand, making them feel so proud of their dad. That's what I will always remember most prominently about this guy. Not that he was hard to do business with, not that he was challenging to talk with or to understand or to communicate with, none of that. I would express myself in this show honestly, openly. He wasn't one of my favorite guys, but I'm a human being as well. I felt so distraught about his death because I bought into the same thing. I thought, like Vince, that maybe we're now arrived at our healing place where the healing can start. And maybe there's things that he can do from if you can control his dialogue and his political views that sometimes were very abrasive, that he could help us somewhere down there, PR wise. You can imagine how he would have done at an Access, WrestleMania Access, things like that, because of his name and his fact that he was a famous guy. But I was very, very heartbroken when I heard. I didn't really want to believe it, but obviously it was true, and but it was a shock, and it was sad. It was sad, man. It's sad when children lose their father. It's sad when a wife loses her husband. And I can identify more with that now at my stage of life after losing Jan. I can get it. I get it better. So I feel for them. Still have feel for them, quite frankly. But I know his wife is still somewhat affiliated with WWE, and I'm sure Vince is taking care of them, and which is good and is and honorable. So I was sad to hear about the whole thing, and I was just shocked. How could this be? I mean, you could not write a movie script that ended this way because it would be so unbelievable. You're telling me this guy finally makes his way back home after this long journey. He walks into a place that he hadn't been in, this cathedral of fans, and he's celebrated. He's got a spark in his eye. He's got a big smile on his face. The kids are happy. People are crying. It's a wonderful thing. And then, boom, hours later, he's dead. It just was just heartbreaking. And I'll always feel that way about him. And because I try to look for the good in everybody.
Sure.
And because he wasn't a great pro wrestler, he was a great attraction. He was a star. But he was a father. And he was a husband. And that counts a whole hell of a lot more in our lives. How we treat our family and how we interact with our families, Conrad, in my opinion, than how good a match we had. We have 4-star match. Did Meltzer give us 5 stars, 4 stars, a dud, whatever we get? Stuff's a lot more important than that. So, and all the negativity that I've probably said here on the show, more than I've said on any show we've done, I'm only being honest, folks, about personal experiences with this guy. But at the end of the run, he kind of made himself whole with me in the fact that I saw a different side of him that made me proud of the father that he was.
We should mention that WWE paid tribute to him on the April 14th Raw with a 10-bell salute and a video. The network added a lineup dubbed Warrior Week in his memory, including a 4-part special that was a wrestling themed episode of the Goldbergs, which aired on May 6th, also dedicated to his memory. And in the 2015 film, The Flintstones and WWE, we had that entire film dedicated to his memory. And in recent years, the Hall of Fame inductions have included the Warrior Award, which is, of course, named after him and presented by his widow, Dana. What do you think ultimately, now that it's all said and done, is going to be Warrior's legacy in professional wrestling?
One of the most controversial talents to ever become a star, a man that was very independent and sometimes misguided. But he got over in spite of his lack of in-ring skills, and his image that he projected, his charisma that he had naturally, organically, was something I'll never forget. But again, because of the last 48 hours of his life, I changed my attitude about, was he still a pain in the ass along the journey? Yeah, sure was. He wasn't the only guy that's a pain in the ass. But at the end of the day, I found newfound respect for him because, again, the most important role we got ain't the top baby face. It's not closing the show. It's not how many stars your match gets. It's what kind of human being are you to the most important people in your life. And no matter what, I think all of us can agree that the most important people in our lives are our family. And I saw a family man that I didn't know existed. So that's how I'm going to remember him. But he'll never be forgotten. I mean, his footprint's indelible. It's there, and it'll always be there. And we'll all have different opinions of him. So, but I have a different view of him at the end of his journey than I did prior to that weekend in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I'm glad we got to cover him. I know that he's been a pretty controversial figure, but I think there's a lot of people listening to this who would cite that as a kid, he was one of their absolute favorite wrestlers, and I'm in that list as well. So we did our best to cover the Ultimate Warrior this week. Next week, we'll be back with King of the Ring 2000 which went down on June 25th, 2000 at the Fleet Center in Boston, Massachusetts. So we've got a little bit of an anniversary show. The main event of that show is The Rock and the Brothers of Destruction, which is Kane and The Undertaker, taking on the McMahon-Helmsley faction, which is Vince, Shane, and Triple H, with Stephanie on the outside. The idea here is Triple H is going to lose the title to whoever scores the pin or submission. So a little bit of an interesting twist to put the world title on the line in a 6-man. We've also got Rikishi and Kurt Angle battling out to determine who will become the king of the ring. DX working with the Dudley Boys in a handicap tables dumpster match. Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe are going to be involved in a hardcore evening gown match. There is so much fun silliness on this, but there's also a fatal 4-way elimination match for the tag titles with Edge and Christian working with Too Cool, the Hardy Boys, and TNA. A lot on the card for us to discuss next week. King of the Ring 2000. Check it out. It's going to be early and ad free over at adfreeshows.com, or just tune in next Thursday right here on Grill and JR on Westwood One. And in the meantime, to hold you over, as I said, we've got tons of bonus content at adfreeshows.com, including On the Road Again with Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross. Hop in the car with these guys, head up and down the highway and sit under the learning tree, or sit by the pool and read your brand new book from jrsbbq.com. Under the Black Hat continues to be a hot seller, Jim.
Yeah, we're very blessed, Conrad. You know, I wrote this book. I'll get through this because I've got tears in my eyes right now thinking about her. This was my last public hug to my late wife. And, you know, we've got a lot. Here's the beautiful part about this. She deserves it so much. We have bona fide interest in Under the Black Hat by some major, television people, movie people,
motion picture studios.
Yeah. And have no idea where it's going to go. May not go anywhere, folks. I don't get my hopes up too high. I'm not being cynical, but those things is a huge, long out, drawn out process. But the book has been critically acclaimed. It's been the number one selling sports biography on Amazon for off and on since it was released. And golly, it only got released in March. So, but we still got that offer at the jrsbbq.com, where I'll personalize your autograph. Great gifts. I know a lot of people got them for Father's Day, and of course any gift you want. But we're going to keep that offer up. I'm not going to do that. Offer is not going to be dated. If you want a signed copy of the version of the first edition hardcover, there's where to go. And while you're there, look at that good sauce we got and things of that nature. It's grilling season, and we love doing that. And you know, sometimes I even get out there, and we get out there today, do a little grilling, some Omaha steaks.
Well, we're excited to have you here and sharing your story every week. If you want a little more, you got to check out Under the Black Hat. It's not only available from his website at jrsbbq.com, but you can get it anywhere you enjoy books. But if you want an autograph, the only place to get it, and he'll personalize it for you, is jrsbbq.com. Don't forget, there's also the book on tape if you just prefer to listen. We're going to keep cranking out this content for you every week here on Grill and JR for free. But if you want a little extra bonus content, check out the book, man, Under the Black Hat. I can't recommend it enough. Almost everyone I know who's read it says that if it's not their very favorite book, it's certainly top 3. It's in the conversation with Bret Hart's book and Mick Foley's first one. And that's rare air, especially in an era where every wrestler has a book.
Yeah.
It's one of the best ones of all time. You don't want to miss it. Get it autographed. And it's a really, really cool gift for the graduate in your life, for the dad in your life, for the wrestling fan in your life. It's jrsbbq.com. And I got to tell you, in my private group chat with my friends, I put over your sauce in a big way because for years and years, I have been a stalwart for Gibson's barbecue sauce. And I know that what we're famous for in Alabama is white sauce. That's not really my jam. I like their championship red, but I've been using yours almost exclusively this summer and I'm really into it. But what I'm a little late on is the mustard, the main event mustard. My buddies absolutely devour. I think it might be your unsung hero of all your sauces.
I think it's going to get over.
I think it already has.
And I'll give it, if it does, we'll give it a nice push. Hey, look, I tried to eat cleaner and I stopped eating mayo, and I still like it. I love it. And so I wanted to get something in the mustard world that was a little different. So this mustard is made with, it's honey mustard. and it's made with has jalapeno mash in it, meaning it's not sizzling hot, but it's spicy, as you know. But man, there's a million ways to use it. I use it on grilled salmon out of my grill. It's great on any sandwich. It's great on any hot dogs, hamburgers, wherever, deviled eggs. It's just wherever you use mustard, it's really good. And I appreciate you bringing that up because it's one of my favorite products that we make. And the other sleeper is that chipotle ketchup. Whereas if you took a little ramekin, little container, and you do about 10 or 15 seconds in your microwave, no more than that, it warms it up and it makes a hell of a steak sauce. So we're doing good with it. We're getting a lot of repeat business. We're selling several cases of our JR's original, which was my mother's original idea, my mother's original concept that she and Jan helped perfect, and it's got my heart wrapped around it. So I appreciate you saying that, Conrad. JR'sBBQ.com, and we pride ourselves in customer service. If we get your order one day, it's going to be shipped within 48 hours. So we try to take care of our people, and because they take care of us.
We should mention you've got like a full-time crew working on this behind the scenes. So don't assume when JR says, "Oh, I'm headed to Jacksonville for a month," that means you're not going to get your sauce. Your sauce is getting shipped the same day or the next day.
Yep.
He's got it down pat over at jrsbbq.com. You don't want to miss it. Check it out just in time for summer. And don't forget, as you're lounging around the pool, the best book you can possibly read, Under the Black Hat. And we'll be back next week, man. King of the Ring 2000 right here on Grillin' JR with the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. Heavy on the mister. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.